Hey, y'all. Josh Clemens here with Social Media Breakfast. So excited to join you on this beautiful early fall Wednesday morning. We've got a really exciting program today, so let's jump right in. First of all, if you do not know about Social Media Breakfast, we are a nonprofit who focus on education and networking. We help make sure that our audience, the greater Madison area, is at the cutting edge of what's going on in the digital marketing space, social media, and beyond. We meet the third Wednesday morning of every month. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, we do free breakfast, hence the Social Media Breakfast. You know, we live in a social media age, so we can do this online as long as we need to, and keep bringing you great speakers like we've had the opportunity to do this last year and a half and continue to do till we can all get together in person again. We would love to have you be part of the conversation. Hashtag SMBMad on all of our channels. We'll be tuning in. If you have questions about today's event, you should drop them into our Facebook Live feed. That is where we'll be primarily monitoring, but we'll also be on all the other feeds. So if we see any good questions, we'll try to relay them on. One of the many ways that we serve the community is by helping our community go to events, take classes, go to conferences to help them stay at the cutting edge of digital marketing. So if you would like to go to a conference, take a class, do some kind of further continuing ed, we would love to help pay for it. You can learn more about that at smbmad.org/scholarships. We are a volunteer-driven organization. This is our wonderful board. These are the folks that make this happen month in and month out. We've got some great sponsors, some great partners, but these are the people living it every day. So a big round of applause for these folks. Next month is going to be a really cool one. Every November, we do a nonprofit focused event. Of course, it's relevant to everybody, such as the goal. But next month, we're going to be hearing from Rowan Childs, who founded the Madison Reading Project, and she's going to be talking about big goals, small budget. So of course, relevant to nonprofits, but kind of relevant to everybody, I would imagine. If you would like to get involved with Social Media Breakfast, we are currently filling up speakers for 2022. We are always looking for volunteers and folks to get involved. We're looking for sponsors. We're looking for nonprofits that we can help spotlight. So if you would like to learn more about getting involved with the org, head on over to smbmad.org and be in touch. We have a very vibrant Facebook group. That is where the conversation continues when these events end. If you have not already joined, you're missing out on a whole lot of fun. Head over to Facebook and search for Social Media Madison Masterminds, and we are there waiting for you to join us. I mentioned that we're volunteer driven, but we're sponsor supported. Our sponsors and partners allow us to do this month in and month out, both, whether they're supplying money or talent or both, they are the ones keeping us going. So a big thank you to all of our sponsors and partners. And with that, we are going to hear from one of our sponsors, Andy from DreamBank.
Good morning, Josh, and good morning, everyone who's tuning in today. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a senior dream curator at DreamBank. Yeah, we would typically be meeting in the DreamBank space soon enough. So, we've obviously been closed since the end of March 2020. The DreamBank space is actually going through a renovation. I've seen it myself. So if for those of you who have been to the space before, and can picture the main area in which the presentation take place, the cloud backdrop is getting an update, little renovation, contrast. It looks nice, but it doesn't photograph well when people are standing in front of it. So we're looking very forward very much to that. But for those of you who haven't been to the space, DreamBank is a free community resource that is put on by American Family Insurance. The whole reason why DreamBank exists is to help inspire people to pursue their dreams. And in large part, it's done through the programs that we offer. So this will probably be reversed, but we just wrapped up our Dream Summit, which is kind of an amalgam, a smash up of our 9 distinct event series. But we have event series ranging from small business and entrepreneurial workshops to inspiration, motivational wellness speaker series. We host fitness events in our space, family-related activities, crafting series. So really trying to appeal to as many different dreamers as possible. I mentioned the Dream Summit. So that took place October 6th and 7th, free to the public. That's actually going to be available till the 6th and 7th of November. So if you weren't able to tune in, or maybe you did attend but missed a couple of the sessions, you can actually go back, register free of charge, and view all of the sessions that took place. We had some really, really great speakers. We had Glennon Doyle, fireside chat. Dan Pink had a great a chat on time management, kind of when it's best to do certain tasks throughout your day. Tan Friends from Queer Eye, and then we had a great keynote kickoff from Drew and Jonathan Scott, the Scott brothers from HGTV. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. It's on our website with all of our other great events. And with that, I will turn it back over to Josh.
Thanks so much, Andy. Yeah, we can't wait to come back to your space as well, of course. Powder Keg could not be with us today, but Powder Keg is a custom website design firm. They've been part of the social media breakfast community for a long time. They offer lots of free trainings and resources at Powder Keg U. So definitely check them out. If you would like to talk to them about a new website or anything else, they do a lot of other things. Head to powderkegdesign.com. If you would like to see a great example of their work, head to smbmad.org. They built our great website that we love and use all the time. So yeah, powderkegdesign.com. So our nonprofit spotlight this month is Extended Hands Pantry. They're a volunteer-driven, faith-based nonprofit org that provides groceries and other household items to those in need and offers tutoring for children in low-income neighborhoods. It operates outdoor curbside at Lighthouse Church and Social on Schroeder Road in Madison on Monday and Friday. Food Pantry emphasizes providing culturally appropriate foods, primarily serving the Lighthouse community and neighborhoods close to Lighthouse. Pantry is open to anyone in Dane County. The organization's tutors make a difference by helping children with the tools to succeed in school, become active citizens and leaders in our community. Poor reading and math skills are still the rule for many children. Learn more about them at extendedhandspantry.org. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Lazauskas. He is going to be talking to us about the 4 elements of great storytelling. As always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Facebook Live chat. We will be monitoring that and relaying them to him to answer after his presentation during the Q&A. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let me stop sharing so he can start. And Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Josh. So good to be with you all this morning. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. All right, as Josh mentioned, my name is Joe Lazauskas. I'm the head of marketing at a content marketing technology company called Contently, and I'm the author of a book called The Storytelling Edge about the art and science of storytelling and how to use those lessons to transform the way you build relationships with your customers. And that's what I want to dive into a little bit today, is the art and the science part. Because one thing that I geek about as a writer, a journalist, and as a marketer is the science of storytelling, how stories impact our brains. And I've spent a lot of time with different neuroscientists, learning about this over the years, even running some studies and experiments myself. And I want to share with you some of the coolest things that I've learned. And to start, I want you all to travel back in time with me. Take a second, take a breath, and travel back in time. The year is 2007. Umbrella is the song of summer. Hipsters here in my hometown of New York are wearing far too much neon. And this man, Dr. Paul Zak, is on an airplane back from a neuroscience conference. Now, Dr. Zak is a pretty impressive guy. He's about 6'5" with the chest to waist ratio of Mr. Incredible. And he's a neuroscientist. Honestly, it's a little bit infuriating. And so Dr. Zak, he's on this plane back from a neuroscience conference, and he's trying to get as much work done as he can before he gets home because he wants to spend time with his wife and kids. So he's hunched over on his laptop in his seat, and he's typing away when suddenly turbulence hits. And I'm not talking about normal turbulence. I'm talking about call out for your mama, we're going down, say your last prayers type of turbulence. And so he does what a lot of us would do. Dr. Zak turns on a movie to distract himself. In this case, he had $1 Million Baby, which his plane was showing, lucky for him, had just won the Oscar for Best Picture. And so Dr. Zak turns on the movie.
One moment.
Dr. Zak turns on the movie.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
1 second, I'm having a little technical difficulties in that Alexa is listening in on me and calling out things. Okay, let me continue my story. So Dr. Zak turns on the movie, and as he watches this touching father-daughter tale, the world around him just starts to melt away. And before he knows it, the movie's over and he feels someone jostling him on his shoulder, going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he turns and he goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then he sees it was the guy next to him. And that the reason that he asked him whether he was okay is because Dr. Zach had been sobbing uncontrollably. And this really bewildered him, this sudden, intense emotional reaction. And so the next day, when he went into his lab at Claremont University, he ran into one of the psychologists on his team. And he told her about this experience he had had on the plane. And he's like, "Isn't that crazy? Isn't that really weird?" And she looks at him and says, "No, it's not, because psychologists use stories to change people's moods and emotional states all the time." And this got Dr. Zach thinking, because the thing that he and his team at Claremont had been studying was oxytocin. So oxytocin is this neurochemical that it appears in our brains and triggers feelings of trust and empathy when mothers are with their children, when we're with family and close friends and connections, when we're mirroring others' behavior in an empathetic way. But we didn't know a lot about it past that, and that's what his team was researching. And this whole experience gave Dr. Zach an idea, which is, what if oxytocin could actually be triggered through storytelling, through video, through stories we hear over video, stories we hear, stories we read, and not just in human-to-human connection. And with a little bit of help from funding from the US government, who wanted to use this type of research for a propaganda project, that's what his team started studying in full force. And this is ultimately what they discovered, which is that stories, when we watch them, we hear them, we read them, great stories make our brains synthesize this magical neurochemical called oxytocin that triggers empathy and feelings
I didn't
of human
get that.
connection.
Could you try again?
But that's not all that it does. And I really apologize. I have a weird Siri thing continuing to happen on my computer that is talking into my ear. So let me just replay this again. So they found that stories make our brains synthesize oxytocin, this neurochemical that triggers feelings of empathy and human connection. But that's not all
I didn't get that.
it does.
Could you try again?
I'm sorry, Josh. I need to go out of PowerPoint because it keeps glitching on me, and switch over to this presentation in Keynote.
You could have just worked Alexa in. She's a great storyteller, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, it's the Siri on my computer, and some reason when I'm doing this in PowerPoint, it is saying I don't get that over and over again in my ear.
It's actually, yeah, we hear it too. No worries. Yeah, see if you can turn it off.
Okay. I'm glad that you all don't think I'm just having an episode.
A moment.
Yeah.
Lisa says it's happening because Mercury is still in retrograde. I can't attest to whether or not that's accurate, but I'm sure.
Oh my God. This is a new first for
I've never seen that
during a Zoom presentation.
Take over.
Okay, let me really hope this stops happening now. Okay, can you all see my screen again?
Yeah.
Okay,
wait.
Fantastic. I'm just going back.
Okay. Yeah, we lost you.
To the correct slide. Yeah. Okay, this is making for a great live stream.
Emily has added that we're also in a full moon. So yeah, the stars are out.
Thank you, Emily. That's
okay, we can see your screen, and hopefully we'll back off.
Okay, let's all take a deep breath. Okay, so start here. So stories make our brains synthesize oxytocin, which is neurochemical that triggers feelings of empathy and human connection. But that is not all that it does. So for this, I'm gonna have to give the simplest neuroscience lesson ever. So when we hear a really good story, what Dr. Zach's team also realized is that the neural activity in our brains increases fivefold. It's like someone's flipped on a switch and illuminated the city of our mind. And neuroscientists have this saying, which is that when neurons fire together, they wire together. So what's happening when we hear a really great story is that all this neural activity in our brain is increasing. And as a result of them all firing together, they're wiring together, which is why we're much more likely to remember something when it's told to us through a story than through a memo or a fact sheet. It's why, the lessons we learned growing up are best passed down through stories. why the lessons that we learn in our professional career are usually delivered through stories. It's because of this dynamic. And so here we see that stories do two really important things. Stories make us remember, and stories make us care, which if you think about it, is what all
I didn't
brands
get
and
that.
marketers really want. But there's another thing that Dr. Zach and his team uncovered, which is through this proprietary metric they developed called immersion, in which they track different attention signals through heart rate, as well as oxytocin production, which they can measure using different sensors through the vagus nerve that runs from the heart to the brain, but is also present in our forearm. And when they showed certain types of branded content that triggered high immersion levels in consumers, they were able to predict purchase actions with an 83% accuracy after they heard a brand story. So in other words, a consumer would hear a very immersive, compelling brand story, and then they were very likely to purchase something afterwards. And so here we see that stories do something even more important. Stories make our brains want to buy, which is what all brands, what all of us marketers really want, right? We want to trigger people to buy stuff from us as the result of our marketing messages. The really big challenge, though, is that though content marketing works because our brains are programmed for stories, is that most brands aren't that great at telling stories. A recent study by Beckin found that the top 5% of branded content gets 90% of all attention. And I think you can see this stat and you can think about it in two ways. Either you can look at it and say, oh, telling really great stories is too hard. I'm just going to buy more display ads. It's going to be too difficult to get in that top 5%. Or you could look at it the way that I look at it and the way that I bet a lot of you look at it, which is that if I can get in that top 5%, I can leave my competitors lingering in the shadows. But the big question we have is, how do you break through? When we're competing with a million stories buzzing in the pockets of our consumers every day, when there's so much content and so much media out there, how do you break through? And I believe the answer is to tell stories that your customers' brains can't help but love. And that's what I want to dive into today. The 4 keys that we found to highly immersive content from all of this neuroscience research that's been done over the past decade: relatability, novelty, fluency, and tension. So let's start with relatability. Relatability is the sense that I know this world. I can see myself in this story. This dynamic is why when we're teenagers, we love teen movies, why we flock to teen movies, whether it's Clueless, 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, High School Musical. We're drawn to teen movies as teenagers. It's the same reason why my mom's favorite movie is Something's Gotta Give. And if you go to the theater to see rom-coms with older stars, you tend to see a little more of a 55 and older crowd. We're drawn to movies with characters and worlds and protagonists that we can see ourselves in. But this is something that doesn't just work for Hollywood. It's actually a really good media trick as well. And one company that used it probably better than anyone else is BuzzFeed. So as BuzzFeed was growing to become one of the fastest growing media companies of all time, they would publish a lot of pieces like this, which is 21 things that could definitely only happen at Stanford. And at first, when you think about BuzzFeed's goals, they want to be a large scale publisher, hundreds of thousands of UVs, primarily monetizing off advertising, want a global reach. You would think, BuzzFeed, why are you writing something that's targeting only at Stanford students? Seems like a pretty small addressable audience. But in fact, they are playing on a great social dynamic that leverages relatability, which basically goes like this, is that a post like this is going to be so relatable to Stanford students and alums that they can't help but click and share it. And at the time they were using this, the primary social network that most people were sharing content on was Facebook. And what was the Facebook feed of all those Stanford students filled with, but other Stanford students and Stanford alumni? And so those people then see that piece of content, they read it. And because of the power of relatability, they also can't help but click on it and then share it. And then pretty much everyone who ever went to Stanford and is on Facebook, which is hundreds of thousands of people, end up seeing the post. And so BuzzFeed repeated this formula over and over again, with tons of different groups of folks. People in different colleges, and even people of different identity groups. This is how they got me. 35 signs who were raised by a Jewish mother. Reason I know is I feel guilty about something right now. I don't even know what it is. Oy vey. It's something that I've also seen utilized really well by even the most niche B2B clients at Contently. So this is one of our clients at Contently, Texas Instruments, and this is the piece that they published, 7 things that only an analog engineer would understand. And the audience for this is so niche of analog engineers. And when I read this piece, it's not relatable to me at all. I barely understand any of it, but it was super relatable to other analog engineers and got thousands of shares, which is super rare for a niche piece of B2B content like this. This is a dynamic we can all use in our content and storytelling, calling out our audience directly in the headline and creating things that are specific for a very niche, specific audience in a highly relatable way. One of my favorite examples of this is from GE. So a few years ago, GE really wanted to attract more engineers because they were losing the engineer talent race to Silicon Valley companies, as well as folks like Amazon and Microsoft, because they were seen very much as just an old school industrial company. So they launched this video series to recruit more engineers to the company. Let's take a look.
Proud of you, son. GE, manufacturer.
Well, that's why I dug this out for you. It's your grandpappy's hammer, and he would have wanted you to have it.
Meant a lot to him.
Yes, GE makes powerful machines, but I'll be writing the code that will allow those machines to share information with each other. I'll be changing the way the
You
world
can't pick it up, can you? Go ahead.
You can't lift the hammer.
It's okay, though. You're going to change the world.
The audio got a little bit weird here, but the series is extremely relatable to engineers everywhere, and it was super successful for GE. They saw an 8x increase in engineer applications after launching this ad series, and it was even so successful that they turned into more of a global brand campaign. And when the actor who played Owen would come on campus, the engineers at GE who came to work there in part because of this ad treated him like a celebrity. They absolutely loved them. And Linda Boff, the GE CMO, told me that it was one of the most powerful and effective pieces of storytelling that they'd ever done through these series of trials and tribulations that Owen goes through. Our second key to great storytelling, or second element of great storytelling, is novelty. So there's this dynamic in our brain when we see something new that our neural activity spikes. And this is an evolutionary process. When we see something new, our brain is triggered to pay attention, to produce more dopamine. And this is so that we're encouraged to both pay attention to and explore new things in our environment, whether they would be a threat, whether they would be a food source, a water source, something that we could take advantage of, a new tribe of people that we can interact with, although that would also trigger feelings of caution and fear. But whenever we see something new, our brains tend to pay attention. And to show how this works in a really powerful way from a marketing perspective, I want to talk to you about Dollar Shave Club and its founder, Michael Dubin. So Michael Dubin is a man after my own heart. He is an improv comic turned marketer who was in his late 20s, kind of in a middling career. And he one day found himself at his dad's Christmas party. And he ended up talking to one of his dad's kind of crazy friends who's telling him about all of these razors he has stored in a warehouse in China that he just doesn't know what to do with. And so Michael is listening to the story. He's like, this guy sounds kind of nuts. Maybe I should just try and ditch him. But then instead he gets another drink and he hears the guy out. And as the guy is talking about all these cheap razors he has in China, he gets an idea, which is, what if I could actually turn this into a product? Because buying razors was really difficult for guys like him. He had to go to the pharmacy. They cost like $20 for 3 of them. You had to find someone to unlock one of those glass cases to get them out. What if he could turn this into some sort of business? The problem is that Michael didn't have a lot of track record. He didn't have a lot of cred. So he couldn't really get funding for this operation. So what he did is he took his last $5,000 and he decided to make a video ad using his best skill, his comedic storytelling skills, to get his company off the ground. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great. Each razor has stainless steel blades and aloe vera lubricating strip and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 foot Roger Federer. I'm gonna ask. Do you think the razor needs a vibrating handle, flashlight, back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome ass grandfather had one blade and only
All right, I'm going to stop that because the audio is freaking out for some reason that I do not understand. So ultimately, Dollar Shave Club created an incredibly absurd, hilarious, relatable video. It had dancing bears, it had polio jokes, it had a very crass taglines, our blades are effing great. And as a result of all of this, that $4,500 investment that Michael Dubin made created a $1 billion brand. A few years later, they were sold to Unilever. And it wasn't just because of this one video. Through this content that Dollar Shave Club created, through the videos that they would put out every time they launched a new product, through the bathroom readers that they would ship with every order that they sent out there, through even a men's magazine called Mel that they launched that rivaled GQ. Dollar Shave Club told all these stories that built a really deep brand loyalty. And so as a result, they sold for $1 billion to Unilever, even though most financial analysts only value them at about 300 million. And that's the power of creating incredibly novel content, which you would understand a little bit better if you saw the actual video. Okay, next up is Fluency, and thank God there's not a video accompanying this section. So Fluency is the idea of how easy it is to get absorbed in a story. And so as a writer, this is something that I find myself saying a lot. I'm no Hemingway. And when I was writing my book, my co-author Shane and I, we put our writing of our initial chapters through a reading analyzer, and we found out that was kind of true. Our writing level was only at a 7th grade level, not very good. But then we put Hemingway's writing through the same reading level analyzer, and we found that Hemingway actually writes at a 4th grade level. And we went ahead and we did this for the most famous authors of all time, from J.K. Rowling to F. Scott Fitzgerald to Toni Morrison. And what we ultimately found is they all wrote at a 6th grade level or below. And this ultimately made sense when we looked a little more into reading level on a broad population basis. And as it turns out, most US adults don't read at a high school level. And even those of us who can read at higher than a high school level don't really enjoy it very much. 11th, 12th grade level, college grade reading levels are really academic. They're very jargony. They're hard to decipher. When in fact, what our brains really, really enjoy is when that barrier to entry for engaging with a piece of content is broken down, when we write in very simple, complex languages. This is true for video content as well, where most consumers turn out if there's not action in story within the first 3 seconds of a video. And this has been borne out with neuroscience research by NeuroInsight, who looked at thousands of video ads being displayed and served within a mobile feed. And what they found is that when a video had an early story arc, when we get into the story right away, those are 58% more likely to be viewed past 3 seconds. The presence of people early in your ads, where you see a clear protagonist that you can relate to, increased emotional intensity with those stories by 133%. And then topical content, again, something we can relate to, led to a 32% boost, and text or subtitles had a 28% higher completion rate. All right, now to get to our final key to great storytelling, the thing that makes a story is tension. So Aristotle once said that a story is establishing the gap between what is and what could be, that this is the key to great storytelling. And if we think of all of the great stories of our lives, they follow this pattern. Think of your favorite rom-coms. It's this gap between what is and what could be. The guy really wants to get the girl. She barely knows he exists. There's this gap. But then he gets to know her and it starts to close. But then what happens? The jerk boyfriend comes in and that gap widens again. And we're on the edge of our seat seeing what's going to happen next. And then that gap starts to close. They start to get closer, but then he totally embarrasses himself at his love interest's sister's wedding. He falls into the cake. He gets too drunk and that gap widens again until finally in the third act, there's that closure and there's that sense of bliss. Our favorite action movies follow this pattern. Danny Ocean and his crew want to rob the casino, but it seems too hard. It's hidden in the vault. They can't possibly get there. The gap is widened. Then they have a plan. They start to close it. They're almost successful. Then it widens again, and they're almost successful, and it widens again. This dynamic of the continuous opening and closing of these conflict gaps is what keeps us very, very much engaged in a story, and what makes a story in its most fundamental sense. If any of you are watching Squid Games right now, this is all that Squid Games does. It's just constant tension. There's this gap between what is and what could be, getting the prize money and surviving or not. And we're constantly brought through this ebb and flow of starting to be successful, dying or almost dying over and over again. That makes it so that if you're like me, you binge the show in 2 or 3 days. I have a great video that maybe I'll share out that illustrates this from Adobe, but I'm not going to play it because the audio is going to go crazy again. So let me then just get to the final story brain checklist, the 4 elements of storytelling that if you kind of go through this every time you're creating a piece of content, you're telling a story for your brand, will help you be more successful. The first is relatability, speaking directly to your audience and making them the central character in your stories. If you're creating something for an audience, bring out a character that they can relate to. If it's a case study, bring out someone who is undergoing a similar challenge to them. If it's more of a brand ad, make it a character that they can relate to, right? This is why the Progressive commercials with Dr. Rick helping people, new homeowners, not become their parents is so freaking good. It's because every millennial new home buyer like me can see myself in that and those deep fears that I have, right? It's extremely relatable. Show people something new. If you create the same copycat content that people have done a million times before, it's not going to resonate. People aren't going to be successful. But if you show them visually something new that they haven't seen, if you present them with a new idea, our brains are programmed to pay attention and to remember those things. Secondarily, with branding moments, try and insert your brand at that moment when your audience is putting that new dynamic and that new story together. Fluency, always try and make it as easy as possible for people to get engrossed in your content. Break down that barrier to entry for getting absorbed in a story. Don't conflate complexity with authority. People aren't going to think your brand is smarter because you're using big words and a lot of comma phrases and complex sentence structures. It's actually much harder to break down complex ideas into easy to understand language. So leverage fluency, always make it as easy as possible for people to get absorbed in your story. And when you're creating video, have a person or a protagonist on screen in the first 3 seconds, as well as an early story arc. Even if that story arc is as simple as something like a gorilla playing drums and your audience's brain is trying to figure out why that is. And finally, tension. Tell a great story that establishes the gap between what is and what could be for your customers. So many brands are afraid, I think, of talking about what's wrong in their industry. What are the real challenges that their customers actually went on when trying to solve a problem? We often have case stories and case studies that just say like, oh yeah, they bought our technology, then everything was great. It's actually much more compelling to talk about the stakes that there were for your customers. What are some challenges that they went through? How did they overcome them? And, with all of the different storytelling mediums that we have right now at our disposal, the fact that with this phone in my pocket, I can create cinema quality video, that through apps like TikTok, we can edit video easier than ever before with literally no video editing skills whatsoever. Tools like Canva, we can tell interactive stories like never before. We're really in a golden age for brands who want to build meaningful relationships with their audience. We can do so much more with so much less than we ever have been. So let's go out there, let's leverage these different elements of great storytelling, and let's create content that breaks through. Thank you very much. Apologies again for the video and Siri stalking me difficulties, but happy to take any questions if we have them.
Yeah, excuse me. That was great. Had some, yeah, that was really cool. One person, Natalia, actually said that this was one of the most valuable and interesting webinars they'd ever been to. Super excited to put that into action in the insurance world. So yeah, very cool. We didn't have a ton of questions come in. Often that's because people are so engaged that they don't think to ask them. So I'm going to ask a couple. And if folks have any questions, you still have a few more minutes to drop them in. And if not, we will, that's okay too. One person wanted to know what was the name of that Adobe video that you didn't play so that they could go find it themselves.
Yeah, it's called Mean Streets. It's really hilarious. It like encompasses all the different elements of storytelling. It's about a marketer who's trying to buy clicks like they're a very illicit drug. And it's super well done. So check that out. Yeah. Cadbury Gorilla, like definitely watch the ad, especially if you're a Phil Collins fan. It's one of the most absurd ads of all time. Sorry, I actually didn't end up showing that one. The Dollar Shave Club video. It's also one of the most absurd ads of all time. It was their launch video. It's super funny. Highly recommend checking that out as well as the rest of their video content. And then, yeah, the GE one was the Owen series, which I don't think you guys could hear very well, but
Is
check
there a
those
place
out
that
too,
you could
'cause
drop
they're
those
really good.
links that we could find them after this?
Yeah, for sure.
Twitter,
I mean, I can just go
Facebook,
on the Facebook
wherever.
page,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I'll
if you
just
want to
drop
drop
them on
them
the
right in
Facebook
the
page.
comments of our post, that would be great. This will be live there after the fact.
I don't know why my computer decided to hate me today.
Yeah. So Kai asked a question about the relatability. I believe he asked if that was, if you could weigh in on the concept of race and class. His question in full: are we excluding people in our stories because we're not trying to market to them? He used Hollywood as an example. For decades, like, it was very much focused on, what Hollywood looked like, which was white. And that's only recently started to change. And I guess he was wondering how you make sure not to exclude large segments of your audience.
Yeah, I think that like definitely don't take it in that framing. That's certainly not what I intended to communicate. It's more the situation and scenario that the character finds themselves in. So like the Owen series, for instance, this young engineer who wants to go work at GE, but everyone thinks that he's going to go work on railroads. Like, that's a situation with a character who, honestly, I don't even know what race that character is, but it was broadly appealing to engineers of all races and all demographic backgrounds, but it's more just geared at those young engineers who are graduating right from college and trying to figure out what they should do next and probably never even considered GE before. So it's more about like that specific scenario that makes us relate to it. We tend to, once we like see that person as in a similar scenario to one that we've been in, or in a similar like generational situation, like with the Dr. Rick commercials for Progressive, right? That's what we tend to relate to and see. So it's more like that scenario that this is something my audience has been in before or feared about being in before, right? Turning into your parents. That's what makes it really relatable.
It's truly a marvelous campaign. Like, we laugh out
it's the
loud.
best campaign.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
So let's talk a little bit about you touched on like an org with like a very small budget, but like that small budget was $5,000. I think probably a lot of folks on here have budgets where $5,000 sounds like a gift. Like they have virtually no budget but their time. So I guess I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about how you implement stories. Let's say, obviously TikTok and Reels and stories sort of changed the game, but let's assume an organization's not using video primarily. They're doing social content, they're blogging, maybe email marketing. Just if you could talk a little bit about how you would implement some of these same strategies into that, I think that might be really helpful, like into like written word and low budget.
Sure. Yeah. So like memes are money for this. like there's so many variations of the distracted boyfriend memes, even if it's a little bit played out, that you can do that is so relatable to who your audience is, right? You just put one of the characters in a situation that they identify with, and the audience will inherently like feel a sense of relatability to that, and they'll want to click on and share it. That's why that meme is so successful, is because it has relatability. One of the characters is like you is baked into it. Right. Within like the trick of honestly of calling out your audience in the headline itself is really effective. Like just when we see our title or the type of person we are in a headline, people who went to Stanford, heads of marketing, yoga fanatics who also love ultimate frisbee, whatever it might be, we have an instinct to want to engage with that content. I do think though that like, just if you're not doing video, like there are just so many opportunities to do that. Like our standards for what we're because our standards for what we're looking for in video nowadays have changed dramatically.
Right. In a good
especially
way,
especially if we sort of entered what I would call this third era of social, where we had the newsfeed era, and that was the primary way we consume content, and the stories era, and now we're in this video feed era where these continuous scrolls of video that we see on TikTok and Reels is like super addictive to our brains. It's like a little, plays in the same dynamic as slot machines, in which not every video is a hit, but we can just keep scrolling and we get enough hits that we want to keep going, right? But the type of video that we watch there isn't this big set, very polished production type of video. It's this more amateur video that we'll watch that can be someone like walking and talking on their phone, can be just a couple quick edits you do like in your living room using like TikTok's really editing features to like you're playing two characters, like maybe you have a wig on, you don't have a wig on, just going back and forth, right? So there's just so many ways that we can create really quick and dirty video now. But also our audience likes this video more within these social environments where we're spending our time, because the big polished thing from a brand screams ad and we immediately click away, versus a normal amateur video is just blends into that whole set of content that we're playing like with like a slot machine. I think I said roulette before. I meant a slot machine. And so, don't say that, oh, I don't have a big enough budget, I can't do video, because you absolutely can do video. We all can. If my like 13-year-old niece can produce more video content than like the vast majority of insurance brands out there, like you can too.
And I'll say I have a client who they work. I work with them on digital, but they have like a traditional marketing firm that they work with as well, and they get these like really nice glitzy commercial type videos for some of their jobs and stuff. And I recently had them test that against a very low quality, just like shot on a phone, somebody who works there talking about the job. The second one, the phone one, way outperformed the like high expensive glitzy video. Yeah, it's like people, they don't want to see that stuff on Facebook. They want to see like people talking to the camera and like chatting. I've seen it also like ones where like mistakes like from politicians have outperformed real glitzy ones, like a kid popped in or a dog jumped up. Like people just like that stuff, like it really works well.
Totally. And it's all about, does it feel natural in the feed? Because, it's a social media breakfast. That's where the majority of our content is being seen. Right. So just so much content from brands sticks out like a sore thumb in your feed. I'll come across, because Twitter's, a very kind of like straight talk, snarky kind of place. And then I'll come across a tweet from McKinsey and Deloitte, and they're like, as the ecosystem shifts, how can marketers leverage a unified structure to reach Gen Z? And it's like, this is totally out of place on Twitter. Like it isn't saying anything. It's like jargony BS that maybe, you can get away with on LinkedIn. But there's so much branded content that we put out there that feels so foreign in the social environment that our, audience is spending their time in.
Yeah, absolutely. We had an interesting question from Emily. If brands have different targets, how do you recommend balancing the storyline? So for example, they're trying to reach students and parents, or students. If I'm trying to reach students first parents, or students first people who would make donations. So she's thinking about a community theater program and how to balance stories for audiences. So I'm assuming they're trying to get people to be involved in the program, while also find like donors and also parents of kids who might be involved. How would you approach that from a storytelling perspective? Is that 3 completely separate tracks, or do you have to create content that all 3 of those groups can see themselves in?
I would lean towards segmenting, yeah, creating, personalizing it, creating content for each of those audience groups. If you come up with a story that appeals to both, that's obviously like a win, right? But majority of the time, it's much more effective to have one very specific audience in mind that you're creating for. And I think students and wealthier donors is probably way too different of 2 buckets. Sometimes I see like successful applications when you're trying to reach like parents and kids, because you kind of get the parents to think my kids would want this, and the kids to think I will want this, and that works. But yeah, in your scenario, I think you need to create content for each audience.
Any advice on how to not confuse the secondary audience with the primary? Like, you don't want the kids seeing the stuff that's intended for one and the other, but they're going to. So like, is there a way you found that can like differentiate brand voice for different audiences, or is it all about like channel and, hitting them where they are?
I mean, yeah, it's just about how you're going to reach them. If it's just your organic audience, I wouldn't really worry about it. It's, like if kids see something that's intended for the students, see something that's intended for donors, that they're going to be like, this is BS. Like, I'm unfollowing this page immediately. Like, they get that you need money, to keep the institution going, and vice versa. If you're thinking about ad targeting, that's obviously where that comes in, right? If you want to promote this on Facebook or on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, then put in the targeting parameters that matches with that audience and serve it to them there, which is just one way to make all of your advertising programs more effective, right? If instead of just having one broad message for all audiences, you actually segment by industry or audience group. This is something we do at Contently, where we basically, position our product in different specific ways for all of the main industries we sell into, from like education to finance to healthcare to tech.
Yeah. Okay. Anne asked a similar question. I'll sort of give it to you. Maybe it gives a slightly different answer to that. And if you feel like we already answered that, that's okay too. Can you speak a little bit how you convince or sell segmenting audience with your content?
Well, one is to run a test and prove that and show that it works, right? That's always the best way. I'd say it's like it's a pretty well established best practice. So if you're getting serious pushback, I'd probably have them relate it to their own lives, right? Like, okay, like imagine you're, think about the last time that you saw an ad that like just wasn't relevant to you at all. Like you're watching football and you saw like a kind of generic Chevy truck commercial that's trying to gear towards everyone, but is like mostly geared towards like guys who feel like their self-worth is mostly tied up in how much their truck can pull. In that case, like be like, did that ad make you want to buy a truck? No, it didn't. And just getting them to see that personal experience of how an irrelevant piece of content or ad makes them feel will probably make them realize that it's important to create stuff that's tailored for a specific audience.
You mentioned early on some small startup called BuzzFeed that was doing some intense segmenting. How did their story end up?
Yeah, pretty well. I mean, like everyone, right? I probably was better in 2017 than it is today, because
fair enough.
That's when like 2013 to 2017 was when like all the media companies here in New York got that sweet, dangerous VC money. But BuzzFeed is one of the only ones that like of that wave of viral new publishers that has survived to be like a long lasting media brand. They have a great news org. They're still really successful. They've, done a good job going cross platform. They're really, really smart.
And I think, to that point, you see BuzzFeed in everybody now. Everybody has sort of like taken their beat and recreated it. So in that sense, like even if they went away tomorrow, they'll live forever,
yeah, the legacy of BuzzFeed lives on, and
Right, exactly.
all of the viral aggregators that have
Yeah, I mean, I've
spawned
long been
off of them.
fascinated by BuzzFeed, and I thought that was a really interesting. Like, I knew what they did. I know what they do. I never thought about how well that helped them reach like millions of different micro audiences that all turned into one massive mega
Yeah.
audience. Like literally, like, are you a Jewish kid from age 30 to 35? We have a story for you. Are you from Romania? We have a story for you. You know, they just like
Yeah.
they put together so much content that was so micro targeted that they were able to build something massive. It's a really
Yeah.
interesting angle to that.
Yeah, and their testing and iteration operation there is wild. Like I spent some time like a day in there just with their data science team for a
Oh, yeah?
story, just to get a sense of how they do it. And yeah, they've built such interesting custom algorithms to like understand what content will perform and predict that internally. At one point they were selling it like as a separate SaaS product.
okay.
Even I'm
Wow.
not sure what happened with that. But they also like they started out with this idea that if you tested and iterated like every single day, like every few hours on what content was performing best, and A/B tested the hell out of everything through cheap Facebook ads back in the day, you know, when we could buy Facebook ads for
Right.
like half a cent,
Right.
that they would figure out what was working, and then they would push that to their broader organic and paid audience. And so that's part of the DNA of what allowed them to do this. And this is one of the things they discovered, right? Is that these highly relatable posts to very niche segmented audiences absolutely kill.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the most enduring lessons from all the things that they figured out. Like, it's not just like the curiosity gap style headlines. It's the hyper targeting for audiences is really where their secret sauce
Yeah, it
was.
literally felt like, oh, that was written for me. I have to read it, right? And they did that for hundreds of millions of people and built like a massive brand based on that. It's really an interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing they would do is they would get an author who went to that specific school, so that when they shared it, they would get the organic reach just off
Built-in
the author.
networks and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they clearly knew what they were doing. So as do you. So thank you so much. This was great. We had a ton of engagement and a lot of folks saying really nice things. When you head over to the Facebook feed and to drop those links, you can see what everybody had to say. But yeah, folks really enjoyed it, as did I. So thank you so much for spending an early Wednesday morning with us. We really appreciate it. To everybody else, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, definitely do that. For the folks asking where they can watch this replay, it's on our Facebook Live page. So if you missed the beginning, you can check it out there. And thank you all, as always, so much for tuning in and joining us. Joe, any last words?
No, just thank you all for your time, attention, your patience with the technical difficulties. And if you want to dig into more of this sort of science and storytelling stuff, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn with the same name as my book, The Storytelling Edge. So you can check it out there.
What's the best way to find you online in general?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I do a good amount of content there with my newsletter, Twitter, at Lazauskas. Those are kind of the two main channels.
Twitter and LinkedIn. Got it. And
Yeah.
feel free to drop those in the Facebook chat so folks can find you.
All right, will do.
Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.